Hey there, we're going to talk all about my irrigation system. I'm going to go through and talk about all of the details of my irrigation system and some overall tips about irrigation in general. But before we get into it, I want to have a little bit of a disclaimer, and it's usually a disclaimer that I like to put in my videos, in that this is just what I do at my farm. This isn't the correct way to do this. There isn't a correct way to do anything, but I want to share with you what's been working here so that you can use this as an example or not as an example, or tweak some stuff and those kinds of things. So what we have going on in here, I'm growing 100% under tunnels, so we have both overhead and drip in the tunnels, and everything's on timers. I'll get into all those details. Before we jump into all the details and the gear and all the pieces with the irrigation system, I want to talk a little bit about the water source. Now, you got to consider your water source, and for me, I'm tying it to my house well system here. We had our well pump replaced a couple years ago, and I chatted with the people that installed it and asked them a lot of questions about flow rates, pressures, water availability, and all that stuff, and I'm good here. And a lot of people ask me a lot about rainwater capture systems, and that might be right for your context. For here, it doesn't make any sense because we have more water and more rain than we know what to do with, and we're generally trying to get the water to move away from our property. So for me, and the size that I am here, rainwater capture isn't really worth my time and energy, but it might be where you are, so keep that in mind. Also, if you're getting city water, that's another thing you want to think about. It could be very expensive. And the other thing, if you're getting city water, is that you want to make sure you're filtering out any chlorine and chloramines and those sorts of things, because those can cause damage to your soil life and plant life. So you want to keep that in consideration. So I've tied into our well system here, and I teed off before the water filtration for my house, but I have an inline sediment filter. It's nothing special. It was left over from another project, but it's just to take out the sediment that's in the water. I noticed that if you don't put one of those somewhere upstream of your irrigation system, you could have some sediment that gets stuck in the valves inside the timers, creating them to stay locked open a little bit and causing them to malfunction. So I've had that problem in the past. So that's been something I've definitely wanted to put in, and it's been keeping up really, really well. So I just tied off in the main part of the house, and then I ran the water line past these tunnels. I'll show you that. I've talked about this in previous videos as we were building out the farm here, but we ran one main irrigation line from the house just past these tunnels here, and we dug a ditch right along here, and that does two things. One is that when it rains, it allows the water to go in there and then run away, and we also got to bury this line here. So this is 3/4 inch irrigation line. It's that black plastic tubing stuff. In retrospect, I probably would have sized up a little bit, maybe an inch or so. You just get a lot of restriction on long lines, long runs, so it's good to size up a little bit. If you have questions about this stuff, I'm not an expert. I would definitely check with an irrigation specialist or something like that to give you some recommendations, but that's what we use. It's been working out okay. And so what we have going on here is that line runs here, and we tee off into each of the tunnels, and this over here is going to be my new third tunnel, and we anticipated potentially having one here, so this line runs past it here, and we're going to tee off into that. Irrigation is super important everywhere on a farm if you're looking for consistent production, but it's even more important when you're growing in tunnels because, there's no rain inside of a tunnel, so you have to provide all of the water for the plants that they need. And one thing that we wanted to do here was create a very flexible system because I don't have a lot of space and I really want to try to dial things in. So what's going on is we have overhead and drip irrigation in the same tunnel, but we also have multiple zones. So this side of the tunnel, the first 4 beds, has a different zone than the back one. So we essentially have 4 zones in the tunnel, 2 for drip, so here and the back 4, and then overhead and for the back 4, and it's all controlled with a timer. This is the timer setup that we have going on, and it's the same setup at the other tunnel in the same location, and also when we build the third tunnel, we'll do the same setup there too. And I did a video about installing this, so I'll leave links for all the videos related down below, and also all of the parts that I show you here and that might be related. I'll put those down below for you guys to check out as well. So it's a basic 4 timer, not very expensive, a lot of options out there. This one's been working out pretty well. And basically this line down here tees off the main line at the bottom, and these are the 4 zones which I just talked about. So we have 2 for the overhead and 2 for the drip. And the thing about the drip is you want to make sure you have a pressure reducer on there, somewhere between 8 and 15 PSI. These are 10 PSI. It's been working pretty well. Very simple, but I wanted to keep it really tidy and clean and basically hide as much of the tubing as I could, just for the sake of making the farm look nicer, but not tripping over things and breaking connections and not having to look at it. So this has been working out really, really well. Let's talk about the overhead system. So this system is a kit that I bought from Farmer's Friend, and of course there's lots of ways to do this. You could probably build this yourself, but I really like buying kits when possible just because I'm so busy, and just taking the time and energy and brain space to put together kits sometimes can be challenging. And I know that when I bought it from Farmer's Friend, it fit this tunnel perfectly. So this is their 100-foot irrigation kit, and this is the 100-foot by 14-foot Gothic Pro tunnel. And this video is not sponsored by Farmer's Friend, but I will leave links down below if you guys want to check it out. So I bought the 100-foot kit, and you guys know from what I said earlier is that this has been broken up into 2 zones. So let me show you how I did that. I'm over here in the middle of the tunnel here, and I want to show you how I did this modification to add another zone. The kit comes with this 1-inch white tubing here, and you can see that on both sides of me here. But what I had to do was run a separate line to service the back half of the tunnel. And so I ran a separate 3/4 inch line here and used a 3/4 inch to 1-inch barb adapter, tied those together, and that feeds the second part of the tunnel. And back over here, I just have both lines running back to the timer. One other thing to modify the 100-foot kit into 250s is at the end of one of the lines, they have these cool little valves that help drain it. So it only comes with 1 per 100-foot kit, so you have to buy an extra one of those. So this is what it looks like with the overhead running, and it just creates this really fine, gentle mist. It's very soft on the plants, really nice coverage. I've been really happy with it. Works great for misting. You could also use this for, getting stuff to germinate if you direct seeded crops. But the problem is, for me, is my farm's so small that I'm not planting whole blocks at a time. So it gets a little tricky because I can't water heavy enough to get things to germinate without overwatering some of the other beds. So sometimes what's really helpful is watering by hand. You can also use the sprinklers to cool yourself down when it's really hot outside. Man, this feels great. Having a really amazing automated irrigation system like I have here is excellent, but sometimes you have to hand water stuff, and for me, a lot of times when I'm direct seeding crops, like carrots for example, I have to make sure the moisture level stays consistent, and I can't do that with the overhead, so I have to come in with a hose. And if you ever try to pull a hose through your beds, you know it can be quite an issue with the hose getting into your beds and breaking crops and stuff. And I have this awesome system here, and I want to talk about it. The garden hose that I pulled out in between the beds to do the hand watering is part of this automatic hose reel system from this company called Hoselink. Hoselink is today's show sponsor, but I actually really love their products too, and I've been using them for the last several months. You've probably seen this in previous videos, and I want to give you a little bit of an update. It's awesome. I use it pretty much every day. This is the 82-foot version, and I can just reach the ends of my 100-foot beds for hand watering those. We also use it as we're mixing up compost behind us here, so it's super handy, it's super versatile. It also swivels around. We have this tied into a separate little valve setup over here, which I've tied into the main water system, and having something like this for just random stuff like washing off tools as well, it works really, really well, and I'm really happy with it. You pull it out, and then when you give it a little bit of a tug, it'll suck back in and keeps your hose really tidy. Hoselink also just came out with this darker colored one, which is super fancy looking and might match other situations. So I'm really excited about getting another one of these. We're actually going to install it down at the other end, which when we put in the third tunnel will allow us to pull in water hoses from both ends. So again, really like their products. I want to thank them for sponsoring the channel. I'll leave links down below and also a coupon code. Now let's get on talking about the drip system. These are the 4 lines that are coming off of the timer. So these 2 lines going up, these are the 2 for the overhead, and these 2 here are for the drip. So one line will run up to the middle of the tunnel and service those beds down there. And this one here just makes a right angle here and goes over to the drip right here. Now, one thing that I've changed from previous systems is I used to use a lot of those quick connect fittings, but I find that they pop off fairly frequently, and I don't want to be dealing with that. And then the water's running everywhere and it's just a mess. So I'm using these standard barb connectors with the hose clamps. It just seems a lot more secure. Over here at a header here for this 4-bed block, and it's super simple, guys. This is just a 3/4 inch irrigation line that I've been running everywhere else, and I got all the parts for all this from a company called Berry Hill. I've also ordered parts from Drip Depot and Drip Works. They all work pretty well. This time I just wanted to try out Berry Hill. They're also in Virginia, which is pretty close to me, and they ship pretty quickly. So I do like these valves here. Let me show you what these look like. So these blue valves are awesome. They're a little bit beefier than the ones I got from some of the other companies, but there's a quick fitting here that goes onto the drip tape, and then you just make a hole here, and you can either punch a hole with something or they'll sell a tool for that. Pop it in, you're good to go. When you're flipping a bed, you just undo this here, pull the tape out, flip the bed, put them back in. You know, I set up 3 here for each bed, and that way if I'm doing lettuce, for example, I'll put in 3 lines because I do 4 rows of lettuce. And doing beets, which is 3 rows, I'll put in 2 tapes. So a lot of flexibility there. Let me show you a couple other pieces that go along with this hardware right here. The end of the header here, this has a 3/4 inch quick fitting on here, which works okay. I haven't had any problem with it. And then this guy just twists off the end. So at first, if you want to bleed out the system before you run water through the drip tape, you can just open this up, let the water run through, cap back up, push the water back through the drip tape. Or also if you're winterizing it or you just need to flush it for any reason, I left this open here. I've used valves in the past, but this is a little bit smaller and a little bit cheaper, and I don't have to open them very often. So that's what I've been using. So I'm in the middle of the tunnel, and this is the line that comes from the timer, and I have a 90-degree here, and then this is the header that runs along these 4 beds here. Same thing in both tunnels. And I want to show you the ends of the tape here. And before I show you that, I know a lot of people ask me all the time about drip tape, and I don't have a preference really. I've been using the Aqua Tracks from Toro. I just try to get the spacing as close together as possible. I think I'm using the 8-inch ones, and I like the thicker ones because they last a little bit longer. So that's what I've been using. I hate to throw away plastic. I might as well keep it around for a while. So over here, let me show you the ends. So all I'm using here is this fitting here that they sell. It quick disconnect onto the drip line, and then this here has a little loop in it, and I just use a landscape staple and I hold it in there, and that's it. And if these get a little loose as they do with the heat, they get wavy and stuff, I'll just pull it out and tighten it back up. It works really well. It's just very, very simple. One last thing I want to mention is that all my beds are standardized to 48 feet, so I can use any drip line on any bed and move them around as needed, and that's really helpful. I think that wraps up all the details for the irrigation system on the farm here, but a lot of people ask me specific numbers about like how long do you run the timer for, or how many gallons. I don't know. You got to use your senses as a farmer or as a gardener. You got to put your hand in the soil. Is it too wet? Is it too dry? And make adjustments there. But what you can do is set a schedule, let it run for a little while, and then make adjustments. I know that, you know, for me, I can walk away from the farm for a couple days with this because it doesn't rain in here and the irrigation will be pretty close. But we put a lot of time into building a little bit more of a complex system so that I have a lot of flexibility moving forwards. And I think that's really a good idea. If you're going to be putting in an irrigation system, spending the time and money, think through it, give yourself a couple extra zones, a little more flexibility. It's really, really helpful. This has been an unbelievable situation here, and I know some of you guys aren't growing in tunnels. So if you're not growing in tunnels, you can use wobblers on risers. I've made videos about that too, and I'll leave that with all the other videos and all the products down below for you to check out. I really want to thank Hoselink for sponsoring the channel. They make a great product, and again, links down below for them along with that coupon code. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and please hit subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you in the next one.